Yo, what up, world? It's your girl, Kelly Howard, here sharing my personal experiences on how being petty almost ruined my life. Yes, all those petty ways and consuming my precious days just and petty thoughts just, why he parked like that? Why is she looking at me? Is she? Can you believe she coming on my post saying XYZ did what? Just pettiness. Just all consuming. And I know you want to be less petty too, don't you, girl? Well, check out these bars. Hey, be less petty with your time. Okay. Be less petty with your mind. Be less petty with your blame. All that petty shit is lame. Be less petty with your friends. Love first. Make amends. Be less petty with your life. Be less petty with your wife. Okay. Be less petty with your mom. Be less petty with your job. Be less petty. Be less petty. Be less petty, baby. Body aches, migraine, chronic illness, anger pains. All it comes from is being petty. Hey, what? I'm telling you now, you don't want to do it. Nope. Because that petty shit. This podcast is not a valid substitute for therapy. This is an open conversation. It is not medical advice and should not be used as such. Please seek help with the medical professional if you are in a crisis. What is up, my less petty pals? I'm your girl, Kelly Howard, and welcome back to Be Less Petty Comedy Self-Help Podcast, where we laugh, learn, and grow together. Today's episode is a special bonus episode. As y'all know, we are bi-weekly, and we just had an episode last week, but y'all know me. When the opportunity arises to talk about more ways to be less petty and love up on ourselves, and for the sake of mental health wellness, I am here for it. You understand? So on today's show, we are chatting with Tamar Blue, founder and CEO of Mental Happy, a first of its kind online mental health platform. Mental Happy provides self-guided tools as well as peer support groups where individuals can talk about life's challenges and receive support from others who understand what they're experiencing. The goal is to make mental health care accessible, affordable, and stigma-free for everyone. Y'all know this is an app that is needed, okay? Also joining today's chat is Tamyra Villines, one of the licensed mental health counselors who is a part of the platform already. She is the owner of Lynn E Therapy in Fort Lauderdale, but as you know, you have access to her through the app Mental Happy. She also specializes in depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and personality disorder. So basically, this whole episode, y'all, is about me. Y'all not even here. I'm kidding. I'm not. No, really, I am. I'm kidding. Okay. I'm not. Anyways, let's get the show started. But y'all know before I do, I got to bring in the wind to my sail, the post office to my mail, the scrunchie to my ponytail, my wonderful seasoned co-host, primary therapist, Alexandra Garcia.
Those keep getting better and better, and I live for it.
Every week, I'm like, what other outlandish thing can I say how she supports me?
I love it. Great job.
How you been? Just got back with the glow. I see you, Tim.
Yes, Mexico was amazing. It went by way too quick, but back to work, back to reality.
Where did you go?
I went to Playa del Carmen.
Oh, nice. I don't even know where that is.
Yeah. It's like an hour and a half out of Cancun. You fly into Cancun.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm assuming you probably didn't run into anything petty while you were out there.
You know what? I didn't. I mean, at the airport, there was rude staff, and I was annoyed back, but that wasn't really too much. Yeah. So I was going to say, I don't really have a petty story. Do you have one?
Oh, I always have petty stories. I actually got a couple, but I'm going to keep it brief. I have a less petty thing. I officially have decided that I am done smoking weed.
Wow.
I know that's a major decision to
that
just
is
be
major.
Definitive about it, but I'm very definitive about it because, for one, I've been doing the pros and cons and weighing them, and the cons just outweigh the pros on so many levels as far as my functionality and all the amount of work that I need to get done that I'm not capable of doing. And I'm like, I'm able to get stuff done, but it's a lot more that I could be doing if I'm being honest. Then this past weekend, and it's been a mental struggle for me. And I think what happened this weekend is I started listening to my body about it. And I was smoking, and then I would get, dizziness. And I tried a few different strains, some from the dispensary, some we've grown our own. It's just literally the smoking in general causes me dizziness. I've had some blurredness in my vision, and the migraines have been back. I had a migraine yesterday. I woke up with a migraine today. I couldn't go to sleep last night because I had a migraine. It's like little stuff like that I tend to pacify or ignore.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't keep doing that. Like, I'm gonna be 40 in 9 days, yo. Like my mind and my body is telling me, like, yo, what petty habits you hold on to, what things you need in order to get aligned and evolve and elevate in your life. Like, stop wasting time. And weed to me is literally, especially in the magnitude of how, because I have the medical marijuana card, it's like, it's just available.
Yeah.
To me. You know what I mean? And so it's like the access of it makes it just that much easier. And I'm not using it smart. If I was celebrating or using it for moments to entertain and be with other people, that's one thing. But if I'm just wake and bake, sleep and bake, walk and bake, think and bake, bake and bake and bake, like, all right, Kelly. You gotta,
Yeah. I mean, well, I'm glad that you're listening to your mind and your body. And question for you, because I know you've been open with your health journey. Do you feel like your MS is acting up a little bit if like you're having like the blurred vision and the headaches?
Now, I did take that into consideration because I take an injection for MS, and I took an injection yesterday. That was my due date. And I got the migraine yesterday, which that has a side effect of headaches. And then I got the headache today. So I definitely took that into consideration. But when I'm weighing out the pros and the cons, I'm also just thinking about how less, like, I'm a very type A type person. I was in the military. I have a very driven way of performing. And when I smoke weed, I just don't perform like that. I just don't. I
totally agree with you. And
capacity.
I believe your pros and cons. I just didn't want you to forget about your MS, but I know you don't. And you know what? I will say that I think from a creative standpoint, I do think it blunts you a bit. When I've had conversations with you, when you've been high, whatever. So I think from a creative standpoint and from a working standpoint, like, I think it's for the best, if that makes sense.
Well, thank you. I agree. And one of the counselors that we got on the show today, that's her specialty. So I want to know, how she feels about this thing too. And without further ado, I think we need to bring them in because it's a very, very short show today, guys. We're down to just 30 minutes, but it's going to be really informative, and hopefully you get some great tips and tools to take away. So without further ado, I want to bring in the CEO and founder of Mental Happy, Tamar Blue. Hi.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, snaps and claps in the comments, y'all, for her.
Yes.
And I'm going to bring in she's on your platform, correct?
I think so. I don't know. There's a lot of people.
Okay. I might have just called you out.
I do know she's a speaker. I do know that.
Okay. So how Tamar even showed up for this random bonus event, you guys, random bonus show, as they reached out to me to do stand-up comedy for a wellness seminar.
For our app launch event that we're having,
app launch event for Mental Happy. And so they reached out to me, and I was like, oh shit, this is a perfect opportunity to talk about mental health, right? Because that's what I do. That's what I love to do. And so I wanted to get the founders and some of their associates involved in the best way that I could. And so this was one of the ways. So here they are, and that's why they're here today. And so I'm going to bring in Tamyra, one of the speakers how about you tell us what you're doing with Mental Happy? How about that?
Hi, Tamyra.
Hello. So I met also, like you, I was reached out to be one of the speakers for her wellness event. So that's
Okay.
Awesome.
Got it. So in my intro, where I said that y'all could find her on her app, that was not true. So I need
So Tamyra, where do you work otherwise? Like, where do you just do speaking events, or how do you practice?
I really like how you said that. We're going to speak that into existence, but I am currently working private practice.
Nice.
Lynn E-Therapy, correct? That's your company.
Yes. So I currently see clients on the outpatient basis, virtually, Lynn E-Therapy.
Cool.
Virtually. Y'all hear that in the comments? So if you're looking for a therapist, here is a POC therapist right here in your face. Because I know that's the biggest concern, is that there are no POC therapists, which I can personally attest to, because I didn't have a lot of white therapists.
Yeah, for sure.
Why don't you tell us about the app a little bit?
Yeah. Let's talk about the app, guys. We want to do the petty stories and the games and stuff, but I want to focus in on what this app does so that everybody can get some type of value from it, because it sounds amazing. Tamar, where did this app idea even come from?
Really just my own life's journey with finding balance and emotional wellness and healing. It's just mental happy has probably been like a 6-year journey so far. And when we initially started, we had this idea of creating a community of like safe spaces for people to find individualized help, right? I've been on both spectrums of I can afford therapy, now, but once upon a time I couldn't afford therapy, and support groups were something that you had to kind of go to in person, and they were almost always exclusive to like Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. It was just really hard to find support groups for, just maybe feeling like you're in a sunken place, or maybe you are going through a
support group.
right. Yeah. Maybe you're having, marriage relationship issues. Maybe you are about to have a baby. Maybe you're experiencing caregiver stress because you're having to take care of your parents, plus you have your own children. Maybe you got diagnosed with an illness. Maybe you got diagnosed with an injury. Maybe you're coming out of the military. Maybe, you lost your job. Maybe you're grieving a pet. It's just so many life events that we go through that, people don't realize that, we could use a little bit more support outside of like our friends and family network. Sometimes it's easier to say things from a stranger or get advice from a stranger than it is someone you know. So we started Mental Happy just really on that premise of creating these safe spaces. One of the things we realized in the market is that a lot of the support groups that were available online were just there was just no efficacy in like the information that was shared. It was just a lot of spamming and people just kind of self-promoting, not really like being on topic of what they're supposed to do. So we created Mental Happy to have these support groups where people can find all this type of help. But more importantly, they're led by an expert. And an expert could be anywhere from like a licensed therapist to we have medical practitioners. We have really experienced life coaches and fitness practitioners is what we're currently onboarding on the site. So anybody that has some type of physical or emotional wellness experience or education can lead a group. And they facilitate the group with, either weekly talks or bi-weekly talks. But in between that time, the members within that group can share information and exchange information as well. So it's definitely been a labor of love building Mental Happy. We started doing this just groups through Facebook. We grew the Facebook community to like over 100,000 people.
Oh, wow.
And we are currently, we had a lot of like public groups on the platform that didn't have expert-led facilitators. And now we are starting to we had more private groups that had the expert-led facilitators, but now we're opening up public groups that have expert-led facilitators too. Because currently it was just licensed professionals that wanted to do this for like their patients and clients and such. So now we're finding experts that want to do this because they're like, hey, I have, 10,000 followers on Instagram that really like, the work that I put out and the information that I put out, but I really want to work with people kind of in smaller groups. So we're creating a place where they can create these smaller groups, earn income for their expertise, and people can really kind of share and come together on the platform. And that app is launching on October the 10th on World Mental Health Day. And we are doing a lead up of events from the 4th to the 10th. And Tamyra is one of our expert speakers during our kickoff event, if I'm not mistaken. So I think she's doing the first event. And Kelly, you're doing the Comedy Fest event. I thought it was really important to do a comedy show. People are like, why are you having a comedy show in the middle of like a wellness like online
because they're
virtual
all the
event?
same. Laughter
I think
pain is laughter. They are intertwined.
Absolutely. I think laughter is a really great and overlooked form of therapy. It's really underappreciated in terms of a therapy. It's more seen as an entertainment. And I love to laugh a lot. My husband tells the best jokes. And I just thought it would be great to incorporate just, the serious things, the important things, but also the lighthearted things too that make life worth living.
Awesome. And just we want to make sure we're getting all the right information out. So it's launching on October 10th. We know that there's group therapy involved. I love group. Group is so powerful. And what else will the app offer? Will there be individual therapy or just groups?
No. So currently we don't offer individual therapy on the app. I don't know where as a company, we kind of don't really foresee us going the individualized therapy route on the app. Yeah. We really want to keep it to like community and support. And, the other thing people don't realize is that we do have a mental health crisis in the country, not just like people experiencing mental health, but we actually have a shortage of mental health professionals. Mm-hmm. So platforms that, kind of oftentimes offer like one-on-one therapy, the therapists aren't really paid their full share of what they could be making hourly. And the therapy is cut short. They usually do like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. So we really believe that this just allows therapists to serve more people, give a little bit more quality of work, and then also have, people exchange information amongst themselves on a monitored platform where we can make sure that the information is what should be shared.
No, I love that. I mean, I'm a therapist. I work in a higher level of care. So I work in a partial hospitalization program. So there's a lot of mental health apps that have been popping up, and I'll be honest, I'm always a little weary about them. I want folks to be able, I think the easier for folks to access help, great. And we want to make sure people are getting what they need. And I do think some of these apps don't have the quality. So I appreciate that you brought that up.
We see it as a major complaint in the market, and and we also see ourselves as a gap filler, right? Like I remember even when I was going to one-on-one therapy, there's still a 4 to 6 week time period between depending on what you can afford, right? Usually most people cannot afford the $200 an hour for 50 minutes every single week. Like it's nearly $1,000 a month. So if you're doing just monthly therapy, or every 6 weeks, there's still a good distance of time between like the time you saw the therapist once and then the time you saw. So we see ourselves as that gap filler where you can find community, where you can find information and do these practices that you should be doing. You should be exercising the things that you learn in therapy anyway.
Yeah. That's so true. There is that gap. And then you realize during the gap that you're like, oh shit, I need to make another appointment with my therapist. Because you're like going through those moments.
Right.
So, yes.
And if you don't have an extra $200 to, be on their call and be able to text and stuff which they should get paid that amount. It is very valuable information, but Unfortunately, $200 really disenfranchises a whole lot of people. Like it's just most of America can't afford that.
Yeah.
And if you're not curious, you're not going to go look for other ways either.
Right.
So
exactly, for sure.
Tamyra,
and if you're not represented,
exactly, for sure. Yeah. That is one big factor. If you see faces that don't look like you, it automatically deters you. Like you'd be surprised how many times I have went in stores, on websites, and was about to buy something, but because there was not a face that looked like me, I was like, nope, this shit probably ain't gonna fit me. This ain't me. You know what I'm saying? Like it's so many times.
That part.
That's so real.
For sure.
Now you, Tamyra, you have a private practice, so you kind of understand some of the concerns that Tamyra is talking about with that gap and stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about how, since the pandemic, because I think the pandemic is really what has kind of ramped up therapy, right? It's everybody's like, oh shit, I got issues. I need to talk to somebody.
Yep.
That awareness of it now. Have you seen that in your practice?
Absolutely. I think what the pandemic did was to normalize a little bit about mental health, because it's always been there. Like we've always had anxiety, depression, like these issues have always been there. But when you're forced to sit with yourself and take away the distractions around you, then it puts you in a corner. And it's like, okay, how do I get out of here? And you don't have your job, you don't have your friends, you don't have going out, you don't have the vacation you're planning, 2 months from now to look forward to. You don't have any of that. So it pushes you in that corner. And unfortunately, I say it's good for the pandemic to happen because of that, but it's really unfortunate that people of color had to be pushed to that corner in order to make mental health more of a positive conversation. And I just hope that it's not something that is a fade, and that we take this moment, we take this opportunity, and we make mental health part of our dinner talk table for the rest of the time.
Yeah.
This might just be my personal opinion, but once you open up and realize there's no way that you can go back. Like this has to be a continued conversation. You can't, I mentally can't do certain things without thinking back on them. Like, damn, what was this? What was my part in this? How did I show up in that way? What could I have done differently? These are questions that don't go away once that box is open. So I believe you're going to have a full array of clients for a very long time, because this is not something that can go away.
And I know one thing Tamar was talking about is the price of therapy. And one of the things about therapy now is like, it used to be one of those things where it's like, oh, this thing is like something like over there that them people do that those people can afford, when it's not that way. And it's never really been that way. It's just, we've never really advertised it that way, because there are a lot of therapists that offer sliding scales. There are interns that work under therapists where you can get therapy as low as $30 an hour, $50 an hour, like sliding scale. And like I said, like that stuff has always been there. We've just never, like, therapy has never been advertised that way. It's been advertised that's like somewhere over here, over there, that's too expensive, that only those people can afford. And the pandemic did that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because I always want it to be accessible to people, and and more than one thing can exist. And I think it's about time that people value, and by that, like people, companies, government, society value the services that us therapists provide. Like we do hard work, and it's been very interesting during the height of the pandemic. And I wonder for the both of you, I was getting to like do consulting work or to do extra work, or for me to leave my job. And, at work, my salary jumped, and that would have never happened if the pandemic didn't happen. And they were like, wow, we want to keep the therapists that we have, because people were being poached for, I work in a higher level of care. So a lot of people were leaving the private practices, and there was just this huge shift. But I am glad that society in general is talking, but therapists are getting paid what they deserve to get paid, or at least it's trending in that direction. So yeah, I'm just excited about that.
So Tamar, what do you do? aside from founder and CEO of Mental Happy? Like, or what did
do
you
I
do before
do?
that?
Well, currently I'm someone's partner. I'm growing a human. That's what I'm currently doing, aside from being a founder and CEO of a company. But before that, I was in staffing. I managed about 200, upwards of like 200 something people working out in the field for various companies. And I can't remember what I did before that. I think because I did that for a long while. And I worked in education and like career and counseling and all that. I don't know, the concept of mental happy it just kind of came to me. It was just something
managing 200 people.
It was just something I needed in my life. So I told a friend of mine who was also a technical developer, our founder and our co-founder, and he was just like, we should build it. Like, we should create this thing.
Build it,
and yeah, and we did that for a while through like other social platforms, and then just through a website. So it's amazing now to like have like an app that people can download and be a lot more accessible.
So cool.
Yeah.
So Tamyra, really quick, are you having an influx of anxiety and depression cases right now in comparison to?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say an influx in clients, period, which is a good thing for me. But also, I think what we are experiencing on the other end of that, as a therapist, like, we are getting burned out a lot faster. People are, their severity is more intense. You know, people are coming to therapy with, like, their severity is higher since I've been in the field, higher than it's ever been since I've been in the field. So I've experienced a lot of therapy friends or colleagues that are struggling themselves because we're working longer hours, because there's more clients. Like I said, the intensity is higher, the demands are higher, and it's just kind of the field is, again, because there's a lack of therapists, especially therapists of color. The field is starting to move it's starting to grow very quickly, and I think we're having a hard time kind of keeping up with it. So in regards to having clients is not a problem. It's not as much of a problem if it was before. It's just, how do I manage this? And kind of like she was saying, I want to be able to be helpful to people, and it hurts when I have to say like I can't, because I don't have any availability for like 2 months. I can't help them. I can't see you until 2 months, you know? So then I have to send them, you know, I mean, luckily I'm involved with other clinicians of color, so I have to send them to someone else. But luckily I can do that. There are some therapists that'll just be like, call your insurance company.
Yeah.
You know, like I like to actually say, like, this is a list of people that are actually accepting new clients, and you can call those people. But it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if they've already made the call, what are the chances of them too making that other call once they've been turned away?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think to not screw up the numbers too much, I think the last study I read was like, for licensed therapists, for like licensed, I believe it's just psychologists. I don't think it was psychiatrists, but for individuals that are licensing and practice in a particular state, there's only about 30 for every 100,000 people in the US.
Wow.
So if you break out the two categories, I think it's like 3,000 in one category and 6,000 in another. I think it's like 6,000 psychologists and 3,000 psychiatrists per some amount of people in the United States. So, you know, and there are nearly 400 million people in the United States. So, you know, when she says they're burnt out, I mean, she means it. They are very much.
Everybody over the age of 10 needs therapy.
Right?
Yeah, right now.
The thing about it is that this gap in regards to like mental health professionals and people that need help is something that is the foundation of America. Like, foundationally, America has never paid mental health workers what they're worth.
Right. Or even paid attention.
No, you'll have a psychiatrist that'll get paid $800,000 for one sitting.
All they do is give a pill.
And all they do is like for 10 minutes say, what's this, and give you medication. And me as a therapist, sometimes at a time, I know it's better now, but at a time it's like, I'm barely making 30,000 and I have a 53-minute session with the client.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the foundation of this. And that's one of the things that I hope that is being broken, kind of like what Alexandra said. Like, I hope that this rise in pay, it continues to rise, because as therapists, as mental health professionals, we do a lot of work and we've never gotten paid our worth. You know, like I'm $100,000 in debt for education debt. And I've never, ever made that amount of salary a year since I've been out of school.
Wow.
And I've worked in every sector of the world, had 2 or 3 jobs, you know, but it takes a lot for us to, like, some of us are lucky and we're able to get there, but it takes a lot. It takes a lot of work.
And my hope for the industry and just for us here in the United States is that, you know, with the Mental Happy platform, and not just the Mental Happy platform, I mean, you know, like Tamyra said, it's at a critical all-time high. Like, when people finally are starting to get the help, they're walking in with like 50 years of their life of trauma, you know, 60 years of their life with trauma, and they're expecting someone to like unravel that in like an hour and a couple sessions. So my hope is that we can reach, you know, with all these resources, with the Mental Happy app and all these platforms and all these individuals, we can reach more people at a younger stage in their life, right? Like, we can start giving people the tools to cope with different life events. You know, maybe you did suffer the loss of a pet when you were a kid, and that was traumatic for you. And how do you cope with that? And then how does that translate to losing a loved one? And how does that translate to your next major life event, like, what are the resiliency tools that we're building in people so that they're not, so if they can go through the Mental Happy app, you know, younger, by the time they get to Tamyra, it's not like she has to like undo all this work that has like never been touched before, right? It's like your car is completely kaput and now you want to do all the maintenance that you should have done in the time that you've owned the car.
Like, no, you just need a new car.
Yeah.
You just need a new car.
Right. And we can't get new bodies, right? We can't get new minds.
And we as individuals have to start prioritizing that, right? Like, we talk to people all the time, you know, as women, we get our hair done, we get our nails done, you do this, you go to the gym, you get your facial, you need
eat
to
right.
Yeah, you have to plug that into the budget, like plug your co-pays into the budget as well, or make the time for Mental Happy and build like mental health. You really have to start building in the care that we need. And so interesting because we're on different levels of care, right? Again, me, I'm at a higher level of care. If you needed to take a leave of absence from work and like, I need a time out, I can't do this anymore. Come on down to the PHP program. But every day, right, you're going to see Tamyra and it's like, I'm a little stressed right now. I need a little bit more, right? So I've talked to folks all the time. We're like, man, Alex, I would have a session with my therapist and I was counting down the days till I was seeing that person again. And I'm like, that's not how you want to live, right? So if we can start throwing in some group therapy and meditation and comedy, that's wellness, like holistically, right? Not just one and done.
Yeah, and the family. I know that Tamar, you have to go really, really soon. So I want to make. You forgot that you had to go. She was like, "Do I?"
No. They pushed back like 5 minutes. They were like, "I need 5 more minutes." So you guys get 5 more minutes.
You know, it's also a family thing too. It's like somebody said that. In the chat, they said, I have hair clients that are in therapy, but they tend to keep it private. And most of it is paid by public aid. And, you know, it's very interesting that she said that because it is a very private thing. Like I would talk to my mom about, you know, therapy and I mean, now it's a lot easier. I've been doing it for years. So it's not even a conversation of like, you still doing that? But I remember when I first started and then I would talk to her about it. She's like, you still doing that therapy thing? And I'm like,
yeah.
Were you there for my childhood? You remember what that was like? Like, yes, I'm still. What do you mean, ma'am? Like, this is probably gonna be a forever thing. Like, you know, it's not something that you just do once or twice or 3 times. Like, it's something that you know it is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yes.
You know, and I think that that's very important that family support that and understand that because people will stop doing things just strictly based on how
what somebody said, someone's feedback.
And then,
go ahead.
How are you going to grow? Like, how are you even going to grow in therapy in the environment that's kind of making you sick? Right. So if these people are making you sick and you're not being open with them about like, hey, I'm working on this. You can't say that to me. You can't do that. I'm working on this in therapy. If you can't do that, then basically you are, like Alex said, every day you're waiting for that hour. Like, when I see my therapist, because it's the only time you have, but that's an hour out of like all these
enough.
Yeah.
Not enough.
Yeah.
So before you go, do you want to tell us on October 10th, like how do we get the app or?
Yeah, people can go to mentalhappy.com/events. I can put it in the chat to make it easier. Oh, you got it. Okay. /events to, yep. I think it's with an S. I think it's events with an S. Yeah. To see all the events that we're having that week. You can also, we'll be announcing the app launch on the 10th, but we're having amazing speakers. Tamyra is going to kind of deep dive a little bit more on how like some of these life events impact our mental health and just some nuances on how mental health has changed. It's an open conversation for all of the events. You can be anonymous on the virtual call. So you can hide your name on your Zoom or whatever you use to log in, and you can turn off your video if you don't want anybody to know that you're there. You can log in with your phone if you don't want anybody to know you're there. You can also ask anonymous questions, which is really great. You can ask private questions, and depending on, if they're not too sensitive and then the therapist feels like it's something they want to take on without any risk of liability, then they'll answer your questions. But it's a really great event. You can hear other people's questions and comments as well. And we cover everything from relationships to, there's a talk about social media and self-esteem. There's a really great talk about parenting and parenting preteens in the time where I think suicide death is like the second cause of death of ages 5 to 15. Tamyra, you can correct me on the numbers, but I think car accidents is the only thing that takes out kids faster than suicides, which when I heard that, I was like, that cannot be true. I checked 5 different places and it is true.
It's very real. So many people actually speak. I was like, literally, I posted a suicide awareness thing on my post, and then people were like messaging me about it. And it was like something like, call me first. We'll miss you or something. And people was like, no one ever answers the phone when I call, or like, these are the kind of messages I was getting from people responding to that. And I'm like, this shows
and imagine
people are thinking about that.
Exactly. And imagine being like 5 or 10, or, you don't even have the words. You don't even have quite the language yet to really express what you're experiencing. So it's a huge pandemic. There's going to be a phenomenal expert speaker talking to parents on, how to get ahead of these like mental health issues in their preteens and teens. And there's even a meditation on Sunday. There's the comedy show on Friday. Let me see if I'm missing any events. And one important,
or do they have to?
They're all free. All the events, all the weeks, all the days are free. We're giving away some great prizes, some fun prizes during the week as well. And then we'll also be talking. There's going to be a support group for men's mental health as well that you can be anonymous on. So hopefully you guys can enjoy all of these free events, and just kind of these support groups and these events and these talks kind of give you an idea of like what would happen on our platform if you decided to join a support group. And while the support groups on the platform aren't always completely free, a lot of the therapists do charge for their time. They get to completely pick their pricing. You can still find some really great support groups to join that are within reasonable pricing. But it's the 4th through the 10th, mentalhappy.com/events. So hope you guys will join us and download the app on the 10th.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. And if you have to pop out, you're more than welcome to go ahead and do so. And we'll continue to talk with.
Yeah. So nice to meet you. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it. I hope to see you guys next early October. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye. So,
okay.
Question for you, Tamyra, that we're talking about families. In your practice, do you do family therapy?
No.
Okay. That's so funny because I'm the same. Well, At my job, I do like at least one family therapy session, but it's not like traditional outpatient therapy.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, this is the patient, this is what's been going on, this is how you can help.
Yes.
Right. It's very like here and now brief family therapy. And I don't think I will ever do
no
outpatient family therapy.
No.
So tell me a little bit why you're having that reaction.
Well, I do individual therapy and I only work with adults. So family therapy is just not my expertise and I'm not very comfortable in it, which is a great thing to know, which I realize, as a therapist, know what your strengths and weaknesses are. Family therapy is not my strength. If there's a situation where I have a client where I need to bring the family in, it may be just to educate everyone, like how can you support your person that's in therapy, and we'll have that type of therapy session, but it won't be an ongoing therapy session. So I don't do family therapy and I don't do couples therapy.
I'm with you. We're the same in that way. I get it. I'm the same way.
It's too many personalities. I don't even know where to start.
I know. I was like, folks that can do couples therapy, like I never wanted to couples therapy either, but there's probably so much I can learn from them. Having one person in the room to support them and manage them, but to make two people feel heard, and to maintain the space, the safety of the space, is no easy feat.
For sure. And I bow down to all the ones that can.
Yes, right. Same.
Yeah, I tried couples therapy once, didn't work out.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I was like, this isn't it for me. So you do have a specialty or a focus on substance abuse, right? Just, asking for a friend. So
What's your question?
I'm just wondering how many people you see coming in struggling with marijuana specifically, or is it usually like alcohol or narcotics?
Yeah, so it's an array of things. And in the outpatient level of care, there's only a certain, I guess I would say, type of client I would see when it comes to addiction. So the person would have to be, if it is something like alcohol or heroin, they would have to be in recovery for a certain amount of months at least before they are my client. So no one that is like actively using something like alcohol or opiates or benzos or something like that. And then as far as marijuana, that's a little different because it doesn't have the physical effect on you if you are not using it, in regards to like, you're not going to die from marijuana withdrawal. Right.
Tamyra, how do you
I don't know.
Because it's so common these days, right? And it's legal, right? You're not going to die from it. But at least for me, I would have patients like I would have to lay the ground rules of like, you cannot come to session high. Right?
Oh, for sure.
In my setting, we try to have folks stay away from it, at least while they're in our program. But how do you deal with that on an outpatient level to manage that? Because you can't have this conversation while you're high. I don't think.
Yeah, for sure. I actually had a client probably like last month, like rolling up during the session, and it was our first session. So I was like, I'm gonna let you cook, bro. I'm gonna let you finish doing that thing that you were doing because I know what you're doing. But do not smoke it in the session. Like, wait until after the session. Like, you can roll up, but just know, like, even after this, you can't even roll up in my sessions, Wow. And I think like virtually it's a little hard too, because people are in their homes. So they're like, oh, I'm at the crib.
Oh, so they were on the call rolling up.
Yeah. So you just have to remind people like, hey, just pretend like you're in the office with me. You wouldn't come to my office and roll up in my office.
No, I wouldn't come to your office and roll up.
Right. But it is a little difficult because there's so much, I guess, controversy in regards to marijuana. Like, it's accepted, it's not accepted. I know, like, in our field, Alex, and you can account for this, from the beginning of time, it's been like no substances at all, like 100% substance free. And now we're going into like, well, we have medical marijuana cards, and we have different strains that can do different things, and it is truly from the earth, and like there's some benefits to it. So I like to tell my clients that I don't have a blanket opinion of marijuana. I treat my clients individually, right? So if you are smoking marijuana and it's something that let's say like medically it truly benefits you and you're using it as if you should, and it's not giving you it's not interrupting your life in any other way, then we're going to talk about how to manage that. Me as a therapist, I'm against anyone being on any type of substance or medication forever. So to me, the goal is for you to be able to do whatever that marijuana is doing, to do it for yourself. Mm-hmm. And the same thing if you're on medication, like my goal is for you to be able to manage this on your own.
Yeah.
But if I have a client come to me and they're like, I haven't been able to keep a job, I can't do anything, like I smoke and I go to bed, I wake up, I smoke, like, then that means that we might need to eliminate marijuana. So I approach it on a kind of like a individual basis. I don't have a blanket, yes, no, maybe so with marijuana. I just approach my client as they present.
Yeah.
And I think that's the bigger issue, is that it is such an array of like how you, like me, I can absolutely smoke a whole blunt and host this podcast, and you may or may not know I'm high. It really just depends. Like, I'm serious. And so, and I've done it before where I've been to Alex and be like, I'm high, FYI, just so you know. And she's like, oh, okay. And so I know that mindset of like, I can function and I can still get things done. I can wake up in the morning, smoke a blunt, feed my kids, get them off to school, do all the things that I would normally do. And people do function in that way. I think because I'm highly introspective and I know, I've seen my body, my mind, my life at a higher peak standard before. And I know the difference between that and where I find myself when I smoke. And so that's the bigger issue for me, right? Is like, I want to be there more often than not. And this isn't allowing me to. And in addition to that too, weed, for me, it's like, it's just weed, right? It's just weed. But because I grew up around addicts that were narcotic addicts and alcohol addicts and all of this other stuff, it's still an addictive behavior. And that's really that bothers me the most. I don't think if I grew up under that, I would care about smoking weed as much as I do, but it makes me feel like I'm doing the same addictive behavior. You know what I mean? That was not benefiting the people that I saw doing this other addictive behavior.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I could talk
but
about
it's definitely determined by the person, and I just believe that we cannot say that like this is not good for you or this is good for you until we evaluate the situation, right? So if I do have a client that has an addictive personality because they have a history of addiction, then I'm going to be like, hey, like we got to be careful with everything, not only marijuana, with food,
shopping,
with water, with exercise, like everything. So we might want to start like nipping this in the bud a little bit. So it's definitely on the individual basis. I do not believe that this whole, because now we've even opened up a sector, because Alex, I don't know about you, but I got hit up a couple of months ago for a treatment center in the PHP level of care that is a marijuana maintenance treatment center.
Oh, interesting.
And they were trying to pay me some good money.
Ooh.
So wait, what do you?
It made me think twice. But then I was like, that's just, that part right there is just against my belief, because these are people that have been addicted to alcohol, meth, heroin, and they're weaning them off of that by doing a marijuana maintenance.
So what's interesting, and I was going to say,
I've seen a lot of studies on that recently. Yeah.
When I went to grad school, like the addiction model that was taught was harm reduction, right? Because old school way of thinking was like abstinence, right? Sex. So harm reduction, the term is reducing, right? If someone is using alcohol 7 days a week, and especially you can't just stop alcohol. Like if someone's an alcoholic, they can't just stop because they will die, right? Let's reduce the amount of drinks. Or if you're smoking 7 days a week, can we reduce it to 5 or 4, right? So that's the way I was trained. And I agree with you. I think analyzing on an individual basis is what works best. And I always say, what is your why, right? If every time you're upset or triggered, I'm grabbing the glass of wine or I'm rolling the blunt, might have, let's talk about that, right?
Yeah.
But that's interesting. And I've read a lot of like research. It's been a while, but in the last year or so, I read some research articles and helping folks with opioids that they were using marijuana in helping. But I would
have billboards promoting that.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
They have billboards promoting the
Yeah.
dispensaries. They have billboards promoting that this can wean you off of opioids.
Yeah.
Weed.
So my mindset, especially when it comes to addiction at that level of care, is that there is something underneath, because addiction is a disease, it's a mental disease. So it's more than just like this substance you're picking up. So let's dig into that first. Like, let's get you sober 100%, dig into that first, and then maybe talk about some other things. Because as long as you're dependent on the substance and whatever it is, it's altering your mindset. So those things, like Alex said, those things that the abandonment, the trauma, like all those symptoms that you're experiencing, you're still numbing them, or at least like decreasing them because of the marijuana. So like, let's try 100% first. Again, like, this is an individual basis for me. So that specific job was a no for me, because it's like people coming straight, like not like straight from using meth, heroin to now we're gonna give them marijuana.
Another thing to do.
And that's what I thought it had to be. I think coming off, right? Because we know for opioids especially, it's extremely painful, right? For a lack of a better word, for people to get off. And it changes the brain chemistry, right? If you look at brain scans of an individual after they've used opioids for some time, their brain is entirely different. So I could see the benefit short term to just help people with pain and without suffering, really. But that's interesting. Like, and then what, right? And then how do we go from there? And then my favorite doctor, and I don't know if you're familiar, Tamyra, Dr. Gabor Mate, who's a psychiatrist, but he specializes, or MD, specializes in addiction. He says people that have substance use disorder have childhood trauma.
Absolutely.
Right? But no one talks about that. It's like, oh, so-and-so just made poor choices. But like, no, to your point of like, there's something underneath. There is something very serious underneath.
Yeah. I realize a lot. And I think that's another thing. Like, y'all know, I'm super introspective, and a lot of my smoking, I would notice that I was either, I had something to do or something needed to get done. And I had fears or insecurities or doubts around that thing, you know what I mean? And so my way, I would go smoke because, I can get creative, or I can go, it's like I would make this thing to go do in order to stop this other thing that I'm worried about, as a placeholder, if you will. And I realized that I was like, no, Kelly, no, this is not going to lead to there. The promised land you're trying to get to. You know what I mean? This ain't gonna this ain't the yellow brick road there. This is not gonna do it. And so it's been a challenge. Like Alex will tell you, I've been on and off and on and off and on and off weed I can easily take a month off. I can easily do that, knowing that I'm gonna go back and smoke again. I've never blanketly said I'm done. And so today is the first day that I've said, I'm done with smoking, because, and then too, it's just like, we don't even think about the health things. Like, my grandma died of lung cancer when I was 10, and she was my primary caregiver at the time. And that's who I grew up with. And so in the back of my head, I'm also thinking like, I'm probably gonna die of lung cancer because I'm smoking.
Yeah.
Even if that's not true.
Yeah. I mean, you may be more prone to it though.
Huh?
I say you may be more prone to it though.
Maybe more prone to it, but it's also like literal mental chatter that doesn't help with your mental health. It's mental chatter in the back going, and like, you might also die from this too, FYI. It's like, all of these things I think happens that we are either, and you have to, and I really do think that meditation, right, all of the practices that I have embodied over the years has helped me get to this point where I can recognize when I'm doing something. And I guess Be Less Petty is just trying to help other people get to that same space of introspection so that they can help themselves, right? And I mean, as a therapist, what are some things that you offer to your patients to try to enhance that introspection, that like part of them that believes in their gut when they know it's telling them something?
Well, I mean, my main thing is to be able, I always teach my clients, I guess what you can kind of say like emotional intelligence. Like you are the host of the party, and then there's your thoughts, and then there's your emotions, and there's an emotion that comes, and there's a set of thoughts that comes with that. It's like their partner, and they come to the party together. Right. But you as the host, you need to be able to say like, hey, depression, you need to sit over there, not by anger, because you guys don't get along. Anxiety, sit in this corner. And then we're going to have a talk about what's going on here. So being more of an observer of your emotions versus like this full participant. And that's kind of how you get out of that like petty mindset, because again, like you're going to have depression, and then depression is going to be telling you something. That's the thought that comes with that. Anxiety is going to be telling you something, and then fear is going to be telling you something. But how do we become more of an observer of that? How do we be able to say like, okay, let me stop and see, what am I feeling, so I can determine if are these thoughts coming from 100% from that emotion, or is it coming from a rational place as well? And then that's how we kind of get out of that space. And then you talk about like marijuana, like you can't really do that when you high.
No.
You know,
you can't.
But I can make you laugh though. That's so true though.
I say it's just kind of person to person. And then like really quick, I've had numerous clients actually come to me that's had marijuana induced psychosis. Yeah, they've smoked marijuana for years, and all of a sudden they start experiencing auditory hallucinations, visual hallucinations, and it just came out of, and this was like no history of this in their family or anything like that. It was induced by marijuana, and these are people that have been smoking for like 10, 15 years. And I had a younger kid that had only been, he's a younger, like 19, 20, but he'd been smoking since he was like 14. And all of a sudden he starts to change, and the family was like, what is going on? And we did everything, took things out, gave him medication, all this kind of stuff. And then eventually I was like, hey, let's just try it. Let's just not smoke. Let's just not do it. Right. And then when he didn't smoke, he started sleeping better. Now the voices didn't quite go away, but it was just like they were a little better. So, but again, like, that's why it's on a case-to-case basis, because it's a real thing. And it's not, and I really hate when people are like, you know, like you can't do this because like it's from the earth and da-da-da-da. But it's like, as humans, biologically, we're set up so differently. So I can't make a blanket statement about that.
Right.
And they try to tell you, have you tried this strain? Because the strain you smoking is the one that's why you messing up like that, because you ain't got the right strain.
And that's such an interesting point, because the patient that you were just talking about was younger, right?
Yeah.
So what I always say is, and I want to see these long-term studies when it's been enough years. Fine, if you're an adult and if this is something that's working for you, then great, right? But I'd say that the mind isn't fully developed until at least you're in your mid-20s, right? Mm-hmm. Now we're having young folks that are smoking, I mean, younger and younger, right? And
11.
But I think when the developing brain is developing, smoking every day, you're altering your brain chemistry. So it's interesting how I've seen so many young people go off to college and they're smoking all the time, right? We don't know what you're genetically predisposed to, right? Especially in Latino and Black families, when we're not talking about mental health. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times smoke, it's not the weed, but if you're predisposed to something and then you're putting something into your body every day, now we're bringing it out. Maybe the schizophrenia wouldn't have come out, so to speak, for lack of a better word, if you weren't smoking each day. Yeah. So just for young people, I just can't stress enough, please try to do it in moderation, because you just don't know the long-term effects.
And I mean, kind of like listen to your body. So like if you're smoking and then you're like, oh, I probably, it was too strong, or it was the wrong strands, let me switch it up. And you switch it up and switch it up and switch it up. And you still having nightmares and night terrors and you're hearing voices and you're seeing things. Then let's try elimination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone in the chat have any other questions? I know we're talking about medical marijuana or marijuana, but it's just a hot topic.
We are, and we're going to wrap it up too here because we're at the 7:00 hour. We've been on an hour. If we have any questions or anything in the comments, please do share them now. I'm surprised, actually. You know what? I think the voices that I've heard, I just entertain them all, though.
Come in, have a seat, guys.
I started smoking weed at 13. So like I started very young. Everybody I knew around me started young. Like
it's a cultural thing.
it was not even a conversation. Like we just smoked. And it's so crazy because like the more I learn, the more, I don't want to say regrets, but like my daughter smoke weed. I have a 20 and a 21-year-old, but just, I can tell the difference in like how they show up when they're smoking. Like I see it. I can see it from a parental standpoint of like, oh, okay. Probably shouldn't have let you do that. Probably should have been a parent in that way. At least until you got of age and wanted to make, you're going to make the choices on your own at all. But I should have definitely been a barrier to not make it so easy for you to do and not care about it. Because I really do think, like you said, until your brain is completely developed, who knows what kind of underlying things can get triggered from that. And then you don't know too. There's so many other factors out here when you smoking at that young of age. You're not going to no dispensary.
Right.
You're not buying it legal, so you don't even know what you're getting. And I've known people that smoke stuff off the street. And like you said, psychosis, like they've smoked stuff off the street and literally like went in a whole different space mentally, and I have a friend that don't smoke weed to this day that is slowly building her life back from like being in a mental hospital, the whole 9 yards, from smoking some bad weed, so it doesn't look like we have any questions coming through.
But I think that also just not only weed, it just shows that how everything you do affects your mental health. Whatever you put into your body, your environment, it affects your mental health. And as a therapist, I always say, I think we are the only profession, Alex, where we have to know everything about our client. Like you go to your gynecologist, they only have to know everything about gynecology. You go to the chiropractor, they only have to know everything about the bones. As a therapist, I have to be the chiropractor, the gynecologist, the PCP, the psychiatrist, the psychologist, the therapist, because I have to figure out like what other factors is affecting you and how you're presenting today.
I totally agree with that. Absolutely. Because it's process of elimination. Like, okay, you change this, but it's the exact so you kind of tease through all the aspects of their life. So
because like you asked me earlier, Alex, did I consider the multiple sclerosis?
Right.
And I get, and that's like Montel Williams promotes the shit out of marijuana for multiple sclerosis, right? There's people out here that are huge advocates because they're like, well, you got MS. You're supposed to be. You know what I mean? This is supposed to be. And it's like, but case by case basis, like you said, Tamyra, right? Maybe it works for some, but I'm realizing that it may not work for me. Right. So, and a person has to be, and that's somebody just commenting on what you guys
it's so important you're honest with your therapist, because I can only treat what you tell me. So if you tell me like, hey, I drive this purple car and I love it, I'm going to be like, oh, wow, you really like purple stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you out here driving a silver car and I'm like, what
happened?
And because
we have seen and heard it all, there is nothing that you're going to say truly that we haven't seen before. Nothing. So, and we are in this profession because we want to help people and not you or tell you what to do, because as therapists, we don't tell you what to do. We just try to guide you through things. So please be honest. It's your treatment. You want to get the most.
Yes.
But even going back to like not being a lot of POC in therapy, you got that huge gap. So now I'm sitting in front of a white person. I'm not going to tell you every motherfucking thing that's going on with me. And I don't, you know what I mean? Like, let's be honest. Like that's going to automatically create some a dishonest connection out the door, just because where's the trust? This
takes time to build trust. That's for sure.
Can fix.
And then Tamyra, are you in Chicago? Where are you?
No, I'm located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Oh, awesome. Very cool.
That's very true, Faith.
Crazy it doesn't help anyone. All right.
Yeah.
Any last
questions or anything for Tamyra, Alex, myself?
Well, questions are rolling in, Tamyra, we usually end having our guests share like a little nugget of knowledge. What would you give folks, or that one piece of information, if you could just leave them with one thing?
I would say listen to yourself, listen to your body, listen to your mind, be your own advocate, and every day show up 100% for yourself. And sometimes 100% means in our head, like not showing up. So sometimes 100% means like today I just can't, and I'm gonna lay in the bed until about noon and I'm gonna try again. And that's okay. So we need to be aware of ourselves. And again, like 100% is being aware, being in touch, and having this. I always like to tell my clients, like, what is the broad goal here? So if you want to be mentally well, then are we doing something every day towards that goal? So create your goal and every day kind of pound at it away, big or small.
Yeah. Thank you. I love that. Love that. Well, I'll definitely be adding you. We have to stay in touch, you know.
Absolutely.
Us therapists gotta stick together.
Girl.
I'm building my therapy squad.
Right.
People got squad goals. They need therapy squad goals. Like when one ain't available, you got to have another one you can call somebody to give you some type of clarity.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They can find you there at Lynn in Therapy, PLLC.com.
Absolutely.
Would you like to also put your Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah, I can. It's just Lynn E Therapy PLLC, I think.
Lynn E.
Well, thank you. Another great conversation. We appreciate you.
Therapy PLLC.
Yeah.
I think you got an underscore or something in
there.
there.
It's Lynn _ E Therapy _ PLLC
Lynn
_
E Therapy. Okay. That's it?
It's an underscore after the PLLC.
Oh, shit. Okay.
We'll get it right.
You probably can just search it. It'll come up.
Therapy P _ LLC.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you guys go.
There we go.
That ain't it.
It'll come up. Once you type it in, it'll come up.
Oh, there we go. Is that it? I think so. We'll make sure to get it
Okay.
out.
Thank you so much, Tamyra, for talking to us today. And even though Tamar is gone, Tamar Blue, but Mental Happy, like, thank you for being a part of the event that's coming up. Thank you for all of that. We really, really do appreciate it, because these type of conversations are needed.
Yeah, thank you guys for having this platform. This is a part of the community that we need.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
So I appreciate it.
Thank you. That's our goal. We're trying.
Right.
I'm going to pull you out while we do the closing announcements. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another successful show of Be Less Petty Comedy Self-Help Podcast with me and your girl, Alexandra Garcia. Reminder, we have the live podcast. That's right. The live podcast in person, live, like me and Alex at a table with Leon Rogers and Ballhead having a discussion in real life, y'all. In real life, in front of y'all. So make sure you come to, if you're in the Chicagoland area, you come to the live taping. You can get tickets at belesspetty.com. B-E-E less, L-E-S-S, petty, Petty.com. And that is next Monday. It is our finale episode. Yes, you guys have been wonderful. Thank you so much for tuning in every week with us. The live episode will still stream, I believe. We're trying to figure that out now, but it's going to be in person. So if you're in Chicago, just come meet us in person. Very limited seating. Go on belesspetty.com and get your tickets. Thank you so much for tuning in to another phenomenal show. We love you. Follow us on Instagram. And yeah, see y'all next time.
Bye. Have a great evening.